Today on Murder, Mystery, and Coffee, we're going to talk about the story of Adam Walsh. But first, let's get some coffee. You know what you want?
No. I have a small iced caramel macchiato with whipped cream.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, is this a
The
small?
macchiato. This is a small?
No.
Sheesh.
Did you say small?
I did.
Holy crap.
All right, so we had to take it from the car to the house. So today, the story that we're going to be covering is the unsolved murder mystery of Adam Walsh. And if you know Unsolved Mysteries or America's Most Wanted, it's usually hosted by John Walsh. So this story is actually about his son, which probably most of you didn't know. His son was abducted and murdered in 1981. So the story goes that on the morning of July 27th, 1981, Adam Walsh went to a Sears department store with his mother in Hollywood, Florida, and he had asked his mom if he could stay and watch some boys play the Atari on one of the kiosks inside the Sears department store. So at that time, video games were new, so the mother said, okay, stay here, I'm gonna just go 3 aisles over. She was looking for a lamp that she had seen that was on clearance. So she said, I'll be right back, and that she was able to see his head from the 3rd aisle over. So about 5 minutes passes, and when she goes back to get Adam, he is nowhere to be found. So she goes, obviously, panic mode, trying to look for her 6-year-old son, and she can't find him. And she soon finds out that a security guard in the department store had found that the boys started to fight, and he told Yeehaw Walsh, which is the mother, that he had kicked those boys out of the department store. So she goes into full search mode. She contacts the police. She contacts her husband, which is John Walsh. He was in Miami at the time, which is probably a 45-minute to a 1-hour drive away from Hollywood, Florida. So he shoots up there, drives up there, and when he gets there, they still can't find their 6-year-old son, Adam Walsh. So he gets a team together of people, starts a search party, because the police at that time in 1981, they really didn't deal with missing child cases. They didn't have a plan or anything to cover that type of crime. So they didn't really know what to do. And when John Walsh saw that it was really just on his own, he ended up paying people that night to create a search party to go out and look for his son.
So John Walsh, Adam's father, he eventually gave everyone money that he knew in the town to fuel up their cars so they can physically go out and search for Adam. A lot of people helped out in the search for many weeks to try to get his story on news stations. And I think, what was it, Fox?
It was Good Morning America.
Good Morning America. Good Morning America finally gave him the chance to
say his story.
Because
what had happened was that throughout the time, the media was involved in the case, and having the media involved in the case obviously made for a better chance of them finding his son. But after a few days, it kind of dwindled down and they were moving on to other stories. So yeah. John needed the attention of the media if he wanted to actually find his son. So he started contacting all of the networks, and I think he said at the time there were really only 3 networks. It was ABC, NBC, and CBS. Oh, yeah. So he contacted them and they said, listen, if we do this for you, we have to do it for every missing case. So they were not willing to take on his story. So he contacted Good Morning America, and he flew up to New York on August 11th, 1981. And he did an interview with his wife, Yeehaw, pleading and offering a $100,000 reward for the, if anybody had any information or found his son, to bring him forward. But unfortunately,
later that day,
they actually found the severed head of Adam Walsh in a canal 140 miles north of Hollywood, Florida, along the Florida Turnpike.
So it was actually two fishermen who were on that canal fishing, and they said they noticed like a doll-shaped head on the side washed up, and when it comes to find out, it was the head of Adam Walsh. The reason why they confirmed it, they matched it with some dental records of Adam's, and confirmed it was his head.
Yeah. And that was, they found him on August 10th, 1981. The interview was the next day. So the parents didn't know at this point when they did the interview that he had already been found. I guess they had to like confirm that the head was actually, oh my God, so sad, that the head belonged to Adam Walsh before they reached out to the parents. They were already in New York. So it's believed that he was abducted from that Sears department store. And there's a lot of suspects in the case and a lot of conspiracy stories of who could have been responsible for kidnapping and murdering him. And
one of the weirdest suspects that nobody that surprised me was Jeffrey Dahmer. So supposedly Jeffrey Dahmer was in that area at the time of the murder, in that part of Florida, and he's known for severing heads and killing children as well.
Young males.
Young male children,
so, yeah, he was a suspect, but I think they cleared him of those charges because he ultimately, when he was arrested in the 90s, he confessed to all the murders that he did without any remorse. And when he was questioned about Adam Walsh, he said, I've already told you what I've done. I've told you everybody I've killed, everybody I've cooked, and everybody I've eaten. Why wouldn't I tell you if I did that?
Yeah.
But he was confirmed. So he was working at a Miami sub shop in 1981, which Miami is only, like I said, 45 minutes away from Hollywood, Florida. But it is crazy because there are witnesses that say that they saw Jeffrey Dahmer at that mall that day that Adam Walsh disappeared.
And one of the eyewitnesses described a white male with his chin was protruding
chin,
and it was sort of the same features as Jeffrey Dahmer. And they described the vehicle, which was the van, and then a separate witness around the location where the head was dumped described Jeffrey Dahmer and the vehicle, which was the blue van, dumping a round object in a bag into the canal. So
yeah, and the blue van just so happened to be a van that was used by the sub shop where Jeffrey Dahmer worked at the time. So it kind of all lines up, but again,
but the number
serial killer cannibal like him who didn't have any remorse for his victims,
willing to
he didn't admit it. Yeah, it kind of makes you think, well, did he do it? There was one person who also did confess and say that he was responsible for Adam Walsh's murder. But this person was known to lie about murders. He had like a sick record of just trying to have the most kills. So when he heard about Adam, he said that he did it, but then later on he said he didn't. He recanted his story, and then on his deathbed, he again confessed that he did do it. So we really don't know. There's no evidence. I think Florida kind of messed up a lot with the evidence that they did have, and it didn't really give closure to the parents at all.
The two parts of evidence that they had on file, which was the machete that he said he used to cut Adam's head off, and the vehicle with the bloodstains on the carpet, both items were lost in Hollywood Police Department's custody. So Hollywood Police Department's custody. So they did make a lot of mistakes, and the chief of the department did admit years later that they weren't equipped. Done a better job. They weren't equipped for that type of case or incident, and they made a lot of mistakes early on, and a lot of mistakes during and towards the end, where they lost crucial evidence that they couldn't even convict the person who admittedly said he killed them. But years later, that guy died at an earlier age of 40-something years old.
Yeah.
From a disease.
From cirrhosis. He was 49 years old, and he was on his deathbed. His niece said that he did confess to killing Adam Walsh. So I mean, if there's any good to come out of this, it is what the parents did after the fact. So John Walsh and Reve Walsh, they ended up opening up the National Society for Missing and Exploited Children, and he went on to create America's Most Wanted, which I grew up watching.
Yeah.
So you know, and he's brought a lot of people
to justice.
People who have kidnapped and abducted kids. A lot of mysteries that to this day remain unsolved. He covered them, you know, and brought it to light. Yeah. So he really, and I remember he said in an interview that his wife, they were mourning and they were thinking of themselves as the victims, but she told him, she said, you know what, we're not the victims. Adam was the victim, and we can't let his death be something that was done in vain. So to do all of that, you know, they saved a lot of lives. And if you've ever been in a department store, if you ever hear anybody say Code Adam, that is actually in honor of Adam Walsh. So if you ever hear Code Adam, that means that there is a missing child. So yeah, right? That's crazy.
But the #1 lesson in the situation like this is don't leave your kids unattended and anywhere.
Yeah.
And you know,
and watch out for kids in general. If you see a child who's alone, you know, step up and say, hey, where are your parents? You know, try to get them to an officer or somebody. Don't just turn a blind eye, you know, because you never know what the situation is, and you could save a life that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that is this week's murder mystery and coffee.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
That was a tough one. Anything with kids is
But you know, even
tough.
though the Adam lost his life, his dad, his parents, they did a lot of good for a lot of people through the years, and you know, at least there's some positivity in that story.
Yeah.
But such a sad story. Again, so next time, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, comment below, let us know if there's any murder mysteries or stories you would like us to cover. And so next time, peace.